were notified of the approval, and so forth, neighbors have appealed. Now there's a hearing scheduled for Wednesday, March 25th. Two, part of the Sportsman's Lodge Shopping Center appears to include the LA City Fire Station located on called Coldwater Canyon. Has the city sold that property to the developer or for the sole purpose of this project? Three, the 100,000 square foot mega shopping center will include 5,500 trips per day on the congested Ventura Boulevard and Coldwater intersection. We don't need more traffic in that area. Four, the parking is just horrendous. The plans show 445 spaces when it's required to have 762 spaces. Many of the parking spaces are tandem. That's going to be crazy. That's just going to be a nightmare. It's going to, one, push off a lot of people from that area, and it's going to create nightmare, and it's going to affect the local businesses. Thankfully, the residents have appealed, and we'll see what happens during the hearing on Wednesday, the 25th. But again, we support smart growth and good development. Bad development, contrived in the dark of night, hidden from the public, is not welcome in our community. And there you go. So, thank you.
Thank you for giving us this time. So I just want to talk about the ordinance that we're talking about, the RFA.
No. It's only items at this point that are not on the agenda.
Oh.
Okay. So you want to speak on item number 6? Yes, there's some. Yes, it will be 6. Yeah, it'll be 6. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'm going to make a comment to Mr. Moreno. There was a public hearing, but only the people who are in a 500-foot radius received the hearing notices. That's how it works in the city. As crazy as you might think, that there was a hearing, there was a determination, and then the neighbors appealed it. So the second public hearing will be on March 25th. The fire station, as far as we understood it, has been sold to the owner of the property, the Sportsman's Lodge property. So just so you understand it, 500-foot radius, that's the requirement. That's what we do also, and so when we had our own hearings here about it, we flyered, we do it by hand, we put out copies of the agenda, and to the 500-foot radius. No, there was no. Does anybody else have any comment on the public comment? Anybody? Okay. Okay, so we'll go on to. Yes? Yes, you may.
We actually had a hearing here on Sportsman's Landing, and I agree with Don. Against, I don't think they have nearly enough parking spaces. There's no use in smoking. There is. If there was any other gym, they have to have like 500 spots. They're high end, and they gave me some kind of.
No. There was nothing special. It's all in the specific plan. There weren't any variances or exceptions to the specific plan, except for the 33 feet for the one building. And our board did support the Sportsman's.
I wanted to finish. I voted against it, and I can't remember how it was against it.
Well, the board did pass it, but there weren't any exceptions to the specific plan except for the height. James.
I defer to James.
I'm sorry.
Isn't the Equinox vacant that area?
No, they moved it to the other side on Coldwater now, so that's why it was re-included in their application.
Whether or not they know, we did have a separate meeting because Equinox was going to go into separate development, and we voted against it.
Yep.
And we thought that it went away, and apparently it is.
But it is part of the Sportsman's Landing.
But they moved it over to where the fire station is?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Richard.
The first time Equinox came around, I was chair of the ad hoc committee, is that correct?
Mhm.
That tried to work.
No, I'm sorry, the advisory.
Advisory committee, I don't get it confused. Anyway, committee of stakeholders that was trying to work with the Weintraub people to come up with a solution that was address the issues the neighbors have, because I live just on the other side of Coldwater on Ventura, so trust me, I'm with you. And it didn't work, they had problems with some of the property owners or whatever, and so they built Equinox someplace else. At that time, the neighborhood council was really good about the outreach and stuff. This time around, when it came through, I fault myself for not checking the agenda, but I have had some health issues last year, and I simply didn't read it. But even as the chair of the previous advisory committee, I would have expected some sort of general email blast or whatever from the neighborhood council about this issue, because it was a known hot topic. And our outreach was less than optimal in my opinion. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
We have an email list, and every month we send out the agendas to everybody that's on the email. If you want to be involved, things get slammed in Studio City in the 11th hour because it's a very desirable area, and there's a lot of development coming our way. And we only have a very little budget, and we literally walk the streets. There's 3 people up here, actually 2, that walk the streets when there's something that is of concern in an immediate area. But we can't walk the whole neighborhood. We don't have the money to mail to the neighborhood. And even when we walk things, people say they don't get them when we literally put them at their doorstep. So if you want to be involved with what goes on here in Studio City, I would highly recommend you sign up there with your email legibly, and you will see all the notices and pay specific attention to land use, because that's what comes our way on a regular basis. And we discuss these things in our meetings. We do the best that we can with the small group that we have up here to get the word out to everybody in the community, because we are for the community, not for ourselves.
Once again, the key is email address legibly. We get a lot of email addresses and we can't read them, so if you find out, you said you put your name down and you didn't get anything, we really need you to print them so people can read them.
Thank you.
You can sign up on the website too.
Yes. The website is www.studiocitync.org. Yes,
Sign up for email address.
I'd like to, we heard your applause when we had the speaker, but could I ask you to raise your hand if that's your issue that you're here for, so I can get a feel for how many people showed up in opposition to the sportsman's development? Is that why you're here? Who's here for that? Okay, specifically for just.
Well, we won't be talking, it's not on the agenda. So that is going to be all over
It's
talking.
interesting to see how many people showed up.
That's fine, but they're not just here for that, I don't think.
So then my question to the chair too is, would we want to reconsider our position?
Not at this point.
No, not, I understand
We
that.
have there's an appeal. So we're an entity of the city, so we really can't do anything at this point. If they come back with something else, the sportsman's lodge, if they come back with something else, then we have another application. We have to wait for the process. Not at this point, because it's in the appeal process of what we approve.
I would think that your party would do that with support of their position.
Well, it was supported, highly supported. Only 2 people on the board voted against it. But that doesn't matter. What I'm trying to explain to you is that it's in the appeal process. So we've already said what we're gonna say, and then it was appealed. The same process as every other application we get. What happens at the appeal process will be either, it'll go one way or the other. If it goes the neighborhood way, I'm sure that the developer will appeal it, because it goes all the way to the city council. So it's not in our hands anymore. We can't appeal ourselves, is basically what the city attorney said. We can't appeal. It's in the appeal process. We can't reverse ourselves now, no. And we can't do anything now.
So our hands on procedure.
Yes. But we made a decision on what was presented to us and who we heard. And you have to remember that only 3 people showed up for that whole hearing, even though we walked every street and everywhere. Okay, so let me let that.
Yeah, I just want to kind of go on what Gail had mentioned. I think there's issues that are impacting people that live in the community that go way beyond 500 feet. It's kind of like the first drop in the bucket, really.
Okay, I'm not gonna stop that,
So-
because I'm not gonna let you talk about that, it's not pertinent to this. No.
Well,
We only have the responsibility of 500 feet.
Well, my point
But
is that I
you're-
believe that it should be
Please-
changed and.
But it doesn't matter, that's not in our purview now.
I understand.
This is not
But
what
the
we're talking
point is
about.
that.
No, Alex, please
Well-
stop, please stop.
Yeah, 500 feet is nonsense.
It doesn't matter, that's all we can do.
But
So there's no
going
point in
beyond the
us
500
discussing
feet,
it now.
why?
We can't make any motions to do anything tonight.
But let me just make a point. It has nothing to do
Give
with the
him 1
500
minute
feet.
to talk, and that's gonna be it.
The issues now that are coming before the communities are definitely gonna be, they're definitely gonna be, how can I say, they're gonna complement or not negatively one another. And to the point of where we're gonna have so much development in certain areas that 500 individual feet will probably not be sufficient. But again, that's a different issue, I won't touch that. But there has to be a way to communicate better to our community, and hopefully you will at least sign up and give us your email so we can get you involved and apprised of what's going on, because there are a lot of changes that are gonna impact many, many people. So please, spread the word. We have new technology to hopefully do that as well, because we really don't want things to go under the radar for many of us who will be impacted beyond the 500 feet. Thank you.
Barry.
The 500 feet is city law, so if we want to change that, it would have to be changed. I personally think it should be at least 1,000 feet, but it would have to be changed citywide, and that hasn't happened, and it's going to take more than just the people in this room to make that happen on a citywide basis. But I tell you this, I'm one of 2 people who walks these around and leaves them under your doormats. And I always fight with her on doing more than the 500 feet. It's like we see on a map the property where it ends, and I'll always do one more. And she might think I'm wasting paper or something, but it's like we do what we do and try to do a little bit more than 500 feet, and that's what the law is now.
Yeah. Well, also, just so you all know, everyone that shows up at hearings say that they never received the notices. Barry and I are the only ones that are willing to do the walking. No one ever comes forward to do it. I try to force everyone to do it, but you can't get anyone to do it. But with the Sportsman's Landing, I asked them to mail out the agenda to the 500-foot radius, and still only 3 people came to the hearing. So if you don't read your mail, if you don't look at the stuff that comes to you, it's just not our responsibility. And I'm gonna just say the one more thing. Number 1, I'm in control of this meeting. It's up to me what happens here. And I'll let all of you talk all you want, but when we get on a subject that is not part of our purview, I will stop you. And the last thing is, 5 years ago, we tried to get the 1,000-foot radius, and no one in the city would support it. So you can only do what you can do. And we do more than any other neighborhood council. We're the only ones that walk the beat and bring these things to the plate here. Anyway, we've tried every color of green, every color of yellow, every color of anything to get people's attention. And 3 people came, okay? So the city does their job, we do what we do, and that's all we can do. Okay, so the hearing, by the way, on the 25th, I'm trying to remember what time, this is at 4:30 at the next to the Van Nuys City Hall at 6262 Van Nuys Boulevard in the Marvin Browdy building. So it's next door to the west of the Van Nuys City Hall. No, there's no parking provided ever. That's another issue that we've tried to get. You can't park in the garage under City Hall because it closes at 7
That was
o'clock. So
intended for the public.
if it's a long hearing, then your car gets locked under there too. I won't say anymore. It won't be nice. Okay, so we'll go on now. Okay, so it's a discussion, but we're not gonna go back and forth. Whoever is signed up to speak will come up, you'll get your 2 minutes, and then, well, how many people are signed up to speak? Okay. So here's what I'll do. We're gonna listen to the 10 people, 8, and if anybody else wants to give in, while we're still on item number 6. You can't talk about it, item number 6, after we go on to item number 7, okay? So after those 8, if anybody else has handed up a comment card, we'll hear what they have to say, okay?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I was out of the room. What are you doing with number 6?
We're going to start our discussion, start with public comment. We have 8 comment cards.
I would prefer to wait until after the discussion before making public comment so that I can make a public comment.
The discussion is listening to the public comment to begin with, and then we'll have.
You don't have a presentation of
Not
issues
really,
for
no.
us
The whole
first?
thing is to be an open forum, listening to the gripes of everybody and what people have to say about it.
Okay, that wasn't really clear, so thank you.
Okay?
But you could be last after hearing every other public speaker.
But
That's 'cause I was the last one to turn it in.
Before the 8th person speaks, you have to hand in your card. We're not gonna go on and on and on waiting for everybody to come up and bring their card here. We have to have some control.
A comment card?
I turned one in, yeah.
What's yours?
William? Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak on randomization? Who hasn't filled out the card?
Pardon me? Here's what we heard. Only the one guy's here. 2. Okay. Okay, so who's the first name? Gail, please.
Nancy Cohen.
Nancy, let me just say one more thing about what he said. Don't start your time. As I said when we started, how many emails I get about the residential floor area district? That's why I figured we'd just listen to what everyone has to say. There isn't a presentation. We all know that there's something wrong, or we're hoping that we can get it fixed when they fix the baseline dimensionalization ordinance. Thank you, Nancy.
My name is Dr. Nancy Cohen, and I live in Studio City. This is, for me, a case of homeowners versus developers, or the little guys versus the rich big guys. The developers certainly do not live in Studio City, yet with their irresponsible, dishonest, unsafe practices, they take away not only from the value of our property, which we are told otherwise is supposed to increase, but they also take away from services to which we have a right. Example, during the demolition of a home across the street from mine, the developers entirely severed a gas line. Fortunately, no one was killed. The gas company was on the street for 3 days. The developers did not stop their building. That meant that all the big trucks from the developers and all the big trucks from the gas company were on the street simultaneously. That was unsafe. Now, when we get a notice that gas rates go up, who pays for that? Not the developers. We do. There's an issue of safety. Yesterday, I was threatened by a trucker. Really threatened by a trucker. There are medical issues, and I'm a physician. The dust and debris cause immense discomfort to individuals, particularly elderly people and people with respiratory ailments. Who pays for the ambulance, or who pays for the doctor visits? Not the developers. We could be told to call the Department of Building and Safety. Yes, many of us have done that many times, But in fact, we are told,
That's right.
that they have 20 business days to respond.
We'll give you another minute.
Okay.
To let everyone.
Thank you. And then they say that there was no issue. In short, I wanted to know who is advocating for homeowners in Studio City. The developers don't live here, yet we are literally and figuratively imprisoned by them by their irresponsible, greedy behaviors. I would like to know how we can develop and implement standards for behavior to which the developers are held accountable for standards which are safe, responsible, and courteous. And I thank you.
Thank you.
John O'Connell.
You know what, I'm inadequate to this compared to the doctor and all that. And she said a lot of what I was gonna say, so I will give over my pen to whoever else wants to do it.
Dr. Cohen, do you want to say anything else? You can have his time.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Daniel Rothbauer.
First of all, I want to thank the committee for volunteering your time, efforts, and patience with community, because I know how difficult this is. So I think I would like to talk about building and development, the RFA. I'm a 22-year resident of Studio City, 5 years in the Landale Square neighborhood, which has really been transforming itself over the last 5 years. And that transformation hasn't necessarily been good. So what I wanted to ask the committee, because some of us have been sending directly emails to Krikorian's office, and I just don't know the right venue, so I guess we're asking you, is when you read this RFA, and it makes it clear that the intent of the RFA was to drop the building square footage to about a third of the size of the lot, and then allow bonus points to help them planning, work with the developers to do things that are good, like variations in frontage, tops of the eco-design, not having patios in the back, lots of things in there. But at the end of the day, what I'm finding, and I think this is what needs to be investigated, is who's going back in and doing the simple check that I did just on the internet. If you look at lots like the one on 4454, the lot's 8,900 square feet. The max.
454 what street?
Radford.
Okay.
The lot max, and the lot size is 8952. If you take the absolute max, I've already been through that? Okay. The absolute max is 0.53, 53%. That allows a house of 4,700 square feet, and that house is 5,062. It's 300 over. It's not including the garage, it's not including. So I don't want to complain about that particular, but every single building I'm looking at is over the max that's allowed. Who's going back in? Who's approving it? So how do we get that information to planning to look at this, why they're allowed to go over? And final thing is just the houses are so tall and they're so close to the front of the street and so close to the neighbors that the good ones are being stepped back on their second levels, on the sides and the front. There's a lot of them that are not doing that. So, and that's one of the ways you get your vote is 5%. So,
Absolutely.
anyways, thank you very much.
James Goldenring.
Hi, I'd also like to thank all of you. I know this isn't easy, especially when we've got a lot of angry people, basically. I live in the Landale Square area, and I have for the last 13 years. And the neighborhood is being, the character of it is being destroyed, basically, slowly but surely. And my question is, when these houses start being torn down and the fences go up, where are the permits? The permits don't even go up until after the foundations are poured. So then what do? You don't have any indication of what kind of house it is, what the square footage is, until it's a fait accompli, basically. So, and there's no one to talk to. We've tried, we write to Krikorian, we go straight to the permit offices. It's a dead end. And the question is, if there was a mansionization law passed, and thank you for the information about the RFA, what happened? There is no one going and looking at these permits properly. Anyone who looked at 4450 and those 54 and those plans at Colfax and at Radford and Landale, would have seen that it was a behemoth. And there are two more going up now that fill up the entire footprint of the lot, practically. And they're gonna be those big, tall, two-story houses with no setback in terms of them being perpendicular, basically. We are a neighborhood of 1 and 1.5 story houses. It's been that way forever. That doesn't mean you can't have new construction. No one's saying that. What we're saying is that there is no reason why this law was passed if these houses are going up. And there's no one protecting the character of these neighborhoods. It's not just our neighborhood. You guys know it. It's everywhere now. And they're cookie cutter houses. And I defy anyone to say that this is going to make us all make more money. It's just going to make us lose our houses eventually because the light's being blocked out, the solar is being blocked on one of the houses, and that's a violation. So obviously the fines aren't enough either to keep these developers from doing what they're doing. So what is the incentive for them? The incentive is to buy a house that's worth maybe $600,000, pay $1 million for it, tear it down, and then build a behemoth and ask for $3 million. It's not right. That's all I have to say.
Please remember, everyone, if anybody thinks they want to say something, it's better to give us a card than not be able to speak. I think we have about 4 left. Hi.
Hello, I'm Nora Doyle. I'm actually going to say almost exactly what Daniel, but I'm going to say it again because it's extremely frustrating. I live in the Silver Triangle. I know the maximum amount you can build is 53% of the lot. We have lots that are 5,850 square feet and 5,400 square feet. I printed out just 2 examples of the latest houses that were built. One is 551 square feet over the limit. Another is 275 square feet over the limit. And I want to know, and I've talked to realtors who say that that does not include, the number they give you on the listing does not include the size of the garage or the covered patios. And I want to know who is monitored, just as you said.
I'm going to show you my notes when everyone's done.
And who do we call, and how does this stop? And we don't know until the house is up for sale. And then what do you do? And they don't seem to have to tear down the, part of the house. They just do it, and then it's done, and nobody can do a thing about it. And we need to get rid of those loopholes of the garage and the covered patio. I think those just have to go. That's it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dariana Cardilli. I live on Agnes Avenue in the Landau Square area. We bought our house in September 2012 and moved in November 2012. A week later, the one house opposite our street was bulldozed. During the 1 year of construction that we endured, our cul-de-sac, and particularly our house and our neighbors, had to endure constant noise, vibration, shaking, cracks in our walls, paintings falling off the wall, improper asbestos removal by the developers, and air quality management control was called. Contractor trucks parked in front of our house, leaving no parking for guests. Rat infestation from the food scraps left by the contractors and the workers there. And the lot in front of our house was subdivided, and 2 Mac mansions that are really cookie cutters were built right in front, close enough to each other that they could really pass the coupon from one window to the other.
What street?
Agnes Avenue. In the 26 months that I have been a resident in the lovely, quiet neighborhood that I had bought a house in, 6 new houses have been built in Landau Square. 1 on Ben, 1 on Sarah, the 2 on Agnes opposite me, 1 on Bradford that everyone's complaining about, 4454, built by the fabulous Osmond brothers, who have built 3 houses in our in Landau Square, and 1 on Morel. currently there are 3 homes that have been bulldozed and are being built in my neighborhood. And they're all being built by more or less the same developers, and they're really building within 6 feet of the lot as much as they can. And they seem to think that it's improving our neighborhood because our real estate value is going up. And I have nothing against development. I have nothing against a person buying and trying to redo the house and perhaps going 1 floor up, expanding a little bit. But this is absolute speculation, and it really needs to stop, because this is not the neighborhood I thought I was buying into. And I would like to add to what the doctor said before me. There are actually safety concerns, because I live in a cul-de-sac, and if there's a cement mixer and somebody has a problem and there's elderly people living in our street, an emergency vehicle cannot come and help. And that's going to be an issue. And I don't want to be there when nobody can come and help somebody on my street because some person is making lots of things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Close enough. Yes, my name is William Kuzman. I am a local realtor. I grew up here in the San Fernando Valley, and I've been selling real estate here in the Valley for 33 years. So I kind of have an interest in every community that's out there. I'm here tonight because you do have this issue on your agenda. I live in Granada Hills, where there's an RFA proposed for my neighborhood, and we don't have this problem that you have. I studied Tahunga, I studied Beverly Grove, and I studied your RFA. I'm glad to hear these comments tonight because, you know, the truth is I know these things are still going to continue to grow up, because the fact of the matter is it's progress, and progress means change, and it's inevitable. You know, these houses wouldn't be built if there weren't people out there to buy these houses. And they are being sold or they wouldn't be built. So the problem is more critical in a more affluent area where my neighborhood, there's no evidence of a problem, but they still want to put an RFA through. Now, in terms of the BMO, it's now been submitted for modification, and I'm imagining you're going to bring that up later. But that won't change what you already have in your RFA. It'll change everybody outside the RFA. And changes to the BMO, I believe, are warranted because it's too complex. The green bonuses really are what is allowing these developers to go over your 53%. And I think you should also check with the zoning administrator and the planning administrator, because I did read that they have the ability to give them another 10% on their own without any public hearing or whatever. It's just something
Other
that's on
things,
there.
but not on the VMO.
So anyway, I hope everybody can resolve the problems, these other issues. I heard about the builders and the safety issues, I'm sure are very valid and should be addressed. It's a difficult problem, it's a catch-22. You can't stop progress, but yet at the same time, progress creates problems for everybody, and we know that throughout history. So hopefully some good solutions can be found to address the real problems going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Garvey?
I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I live on Morella Avenue. I live in Studio City on Morella Avenue. I have a large building built next to me on that street. I'm familiar with the Armin Ramusian and Gregory and Robert Bulgarian, who are the owners of the building. What's allowed this building to become so large is the bonus option. There's a 0.33% baseline machinization, we can call it that, that's allowable. The green options are increasing property lot sizes to 53%. We need to organize a committee, to amend the ordinance by law, have it reduced, and make it something substantial for the community. That's the only way this will be done. You can't do it by talking and worrying about it, discussing issues. You've got to come in there with a legal representative. That's my proposal. I'm willing to work on it. If I have anybody that will come in with me, I'll work with them.
I'll explain that later.
So, we're going to set up a committee of some kind. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what your rules are. How can I do that?
I'll explain that later.
And when is later?
After we have the rest of the public comment.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's the only way that'll happen.
Bayless, last one.
He knows you're calling him though. B-O. Okay.
Hi,
Thank you.
my name is Bayless Glasscock. I live at the corner of Radford and Landale. You can throw a rock from my house to the zoo if you're in good shape. And we watched this house across the street coming up, you know, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more concrete and more wood and chimneys
This
that
one?
go up.
It's this one.
I can't tell for sure, but
We all have these pictures. It's not big enough.
yes, it's big, and you know they got these.
Couldn't find big enough date.
They've got these kind of quasi-covered porch-like things. What do you call them?
We call them balconies.
Balconies. You know these damn things are going to be enclosed with glass in about 5 years because half of the floor space in the valley is something that was a patio that was enclosed and then turned into a room. And it was all happening. So this will be just like that. And I don't know what they'll do with them, but they've only got more space than they know what to do with them. They've got 6 kids. I thought about there was speculation about what this house would be as it was going up, and I thought possibly a casino, maybe a brothel, and you know, because there are chandeliers on the outside of the house.
I know.
What are they thinking? You know, I'm thinking maybe it's going to be an Airbnb or something like that. You know, I can see with 7 or 8 cars parked there. And are there any restrictions about that, by the way?
The cars parking?
No, about turning it into an Airbnb. A hotel.
Not exactly.
Well, is there maybe there should be some forethought about that in terms of the release of the process of issuance, because I think we're all excited about having a lot more traffic in our neighborhood. In case you haven't noticed, you know, you put the school down at one end of the street and another school at the other end. There's traffic. You know, it's like a lot of traffic. You know, I think my general feeling about it. My general feeling about the aesthetics of the house and the scale of it was best stated by my 7-year-old grandson, who said they should put underpants on that house.
I don't think I can respond to the underpants part.
Bruce Gellis.
Hello.
Hi.
My wife and I, Bonnie, have lived in Radford, catty corners to this monstrosity we're talking about, to that lot for 41 years.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I lived in Radford. My wife and I have been living there for like 41 years. I spoke to the contractor because my wife goes to any open house that's within 10 miles of us, the city, and Lisa knows that. And when we asked him, how can you build such a big house? He said, well, we moved the property line out. We put the fence out closer to the street and made the property bigger, which was Armin said, one of our 3 brothers. And in the backyard, at the second house they're building next door, they moved the fence over to what they say is the property line, and the owner of the house is, who I spoke to, is not arguing with them about it, because they put up a new fence, so it looks nice. So they figure they can put up whatever they do, whatever they want. I don't understand how anybody would want to buy a house on the corner with 8 glass doors on one side. 8 French doors on one side of the house. So, and it's just, the whole thing is kind of ridiculous. There's got to be something done to stop this. Whether it's the patio in the front, but now they're putting one on the other house, with the fireplace out there in the front of the house, and it's just gotten out of hand. Whatever I can do to fight, I'd be happy to. Whatever the committee will.
Thank you.
Don't forget to talk into them. I just had a couple comments in the general conversation. One is with, well, I call it the office building on the corner of Radford and Landale.
It's nicer than most people.
Or the White House. All of a sudden, we were away for a couple days, we came back, and now they have billboards in front of the house. My husband has a business, can I put a billboard in front of my house? I mean, isn't there a rule about the size of the signage that they have? I mean,
I haven't heard anything about that, so.
Have you seen it?
No.
Build your dream house with
I get all kinds
They
of.
put up another one today.
But nothing, okay.
Yeah, I mean, they
I'll check that.
basically billboards in front of both those houses, and I find it a little.
I'm sure they don't have the correct signage, so they'll have more room for the non-correct.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, and then the other thing, I walk pretty much every day, as you know, because you're on my route, from more or less Laurel Canyon to Colfax and back down Landale. We don't have sidewalks, and when they have these gigantic trucks parked in front of these houses on Landale, it makes me have to walk in the middle of the street as all the parents are coming to the school trying to kill me. So there's also a safety hazard. You laugh. I mean, so, you know, they'll have the trucks, and then they'll have the lunch truck, and pretty much I'm either on the other side of the street or in the middle of the street, and it's scary because people don't seem to stop at the stop signs. They think that they're just like slow down here. So
Listen, let me just tell you that I live in a street with 17 houses and we had 3 new ones built in the last 2 years. So
At the same
I
time?
totally get it, yes.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Now we have at least 2 or 3
Yeah,
on the same.
and the lunch trucks
pathway.
and the, yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, 3 on the days, and I'm scared.
Okay.
I'm not gonna give up my coffee.
I wrote it in red.
Hello. Hi, I'm Jody Church. Lived in Studio City 32 years with my husband, and we live on Woodland Avenue north of Ventura, behind Sportsman's Lodge. And my question now is, after hearing all these comments, on Woodland a couple years ago, we have these narrow lots. Someone put up a huge, ugly monstrosity, a blue house with these wood sidings, and it sticks out above all of our other homes. It's like 3 houses north of me, and there is a old home next door to me with an older lady, and they put these developers will buy your house, in everybody's mailbox, and I want to know, what can I do when her house is sold that they're not going to put up this 3-story monster next to my house?
Well, if that happens, I'll explain it.
Okay, so just like proactively, when, before the foundation is built.
Okay, there's so many people here, so I'm gonna ask you again. Does anybody else want to say something? No? On this subject, okay. That's all? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna show you something. You see, can you read what these circles say here? DVS, 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 Department of Building and Safety, DVS. That's who we're supposed to report to. Anything that's wrong. That's what I'm gonna say now. Mull that over. And Carl, do you wanna come up?
Sure.
Carl's here from Councilmember Krikorian's office, Carl Jerosian, he's our planning deputy. I'm gonna let him talk first. Public. How much time?
Whatever. Carl Jerosian, planning director for Councilman Paul Krikorian. I was in the back also jotting down some notes. I also have some DVS calls to make tomorrow for some enforcement issues that I heard here, and I also took the 2 on Cantura to find out how the calculations came out to what they are or what they're being advertised. Sometimes I've noticed the advertised number and the number that the city has is a little different, which is generally things being added to the advertised thing that really aren't floor area, and in actually one case, I think the Realtors Association got involved with that one because it was being fraudulently advertised as a larger square footage than what was actually on the site. But I'm happy to look into these 2, and I will check back into them. For the dust and debris, what I do want to say is when there is dust and debris that's leaving the site, call Building and Safety, call the Southern California Air Quality Management District. They actually come out within 3 hours. And also feel free to call our office and we'll make sure that someone goes out there that day to look at it.
Let's be respectful.
Please.
Carl works really hard with us in Forest Community, so.
For some of them, for a couple things that I do want to note is because of the Radford situations, what we have done is put out a new zoning information that clarifies, because our RFA states that no balconies, and in certain cases like that one, some of those were decks over the second story or the first story, or classified otherwise. There is a ZI out there now that classifies any outdoor space as balconies per the RFA.
So it's any outdoor space.
Any outdoor space above the first floor.
If the ZI is what?
It's a zoning clarification that's attached to the RFA, so that when plan checkers are looking through the plans, they now have this clarification there that they'll be referring to also when these situations arise. Also, this also covers rooftop decks. If someone was to have decided to put a rooftop deck, which would have been allowed per the language of the RFA, this doesn't allow those. What it does do is the RFA says that if balconies are to be utilized, and it only allows 3 types of balconies: Juliet balconies, which are small unusable balconies, balconies that are inset into the building, or a balcony, unfortunately, where this is the loophole that the Radford one has used, has 3 sides covered. So they have 3 sides of this balcony covered, but the square footage of the balcony per the RFA is supposed to count against the square footage of the house. So in all 3 of these scenarios, that is the case. So if someone decides to put a balcony, they're taking away square footage that they could build into the house to utilize for the balcony.
So is that what happened here, or is that what's going to happen now?
It's definitely what's going to happen now, and I've asked plan checkers now, 3 different supervisors to review this, and they say that is what's happened in this scenario also.
Okay, so the square footage of the balcony comes out of the square footage of the house?
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
And I will definitely be, the last item that I have here is the billboards on Radford. Not only will I be driving by there on my way home to snap photos and report it, but I'll, not only will I be reporting it, but I'll personally drive by and snap photos to make sure that they have accurate photos of what it is that I'm reporting.
Okay, so while you're there,
And really quickly, one last thing is, 3 years ago when we worked with the community groups and the development community to come up with this RFA, one thing I do have to say is each and every one of these homes that are massive would have been much more massive if this RFA wasn't in place.
It sounds ridiculous, but it is true. I'll try to explain it.
And an example of that is, well, keto was before BMO, but right now we have a 53% cap, and what you have to do is get 4 different bonus options so you won't build a big block house. And even the one on Cantura, if you do look at the picture that was presented, it does have the articulation and it has sloped roof, so you won't have the 33-foot tall flat roof building that has a flat stucco facade and no articulation, which would have been allowed under, and it would have been, this house right here would have been at least 500 or 600 square feet more under the rules without the RFA. So the RFA is not perfect, but it's probably one of the best ones that the city has right now.
Okay, as long as you're here, could you please explain this to me? In the BMO, it says, for the purposes of implementing this subdivision, a remodel shall mean the alteration of an existing building or structure provided that at least 50% of the perimeter length of the contiguous exterior walls and 50% of the roof are retained.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean just one little wall, it seems to me, for a remodel and some of the slab, but 50% of something, 50% of the roof. So on Dilling, there's a drop of the front of the garage that's left. That's all. So how can that be a remodel? And you don't have to explain that, you can send it to me and I'll email it to these people, but.
And you'll send me the address for that one
That's
because.
gonna be, okay, it's 11550 Dilling. And it's the latest one that we noticed, it just didn't seem like there was enough left.
And by the way, remodels are covered under the RFA anyway.
Oh yeah, but this is in the BMO.
Yeah.
That part's in the BMO, so it's not in.
But they would still be required to build per what's required under the RFA. They may be doing that for some of the sewage or school fees, but I'm not sure. There are additional fees if you do a brand new house as opposed to a remodel.
But they
And
still have to leave 50% of this, something in 50%.
not for some of those fees, the way that the fees are written.
Okay, well, but my next thing is that I'm gonna read for all of you what's supposed to be posted, and I want you to know that Caro wrote this. He put this in there so we would be protected, and then I'll explain about why we don't have it. Posting and reporting. During the time of construction, which runs from the date that the first permit is pulled until the date that the certificate of occupancy is issued, an applicant must post on the lot in public view a clear and legible, quote, Studio City RFA clearance sheet, unquote. This document must identify the property address, the applicant's name, an emergency phone number, whether the work is new construction or in addition to an existing home, the percentage of the existing house being altered, the lot size, proposed home square footage, proposed height, floor area ratio, and set forth the bonuses utilized to achieve the FAR, floor to area ratio. I remembered to tell you what those meant. The City Department of Building and Safety will also post this information on the project description in the online property activity report. So, you know that's not happening.
Not happening. Unfortunately, it's only happening in a small section of
I
the
have
building.
never seen a posting.
Of all this.
Never.
Cara and I have both spoken to both of the people who are the inspectors for Studio City, one west of Laurel, one east of Laurel. And we have told them over and over and over again that what's being posted isn't enough, it's not right, this is a law. And then I'll show you again, all those circles of the DBS. So it's not our fault, it's not Corian's fault, it's not Caro's fault. There's something wrong with the process. I don't know how to fix it, but we'll try to talk about it some more.
So,
and we'll try to do more.
Two quick things that I'll note on that. One is, I've been right now working with Valley Village, who is going to adopt the same RFA standards that Studio City has, because right now they're getting the bigger houses bigger than what's, if the ones on Radford were just on the other side of the freeway, they would have been bigger I guarantee that. And so they're actually getting the Studio City RFA to be applied to Valley Village. What that would do is create a larger area so that the plan checkers at Building and Safety and the inspectors at Building and Safety now see more of these cases and can spot the things that are missing faster instead of having me have to point out to them, hey, can you double check this or do that in these scenarios. It will also it'll also require more places that RFA sheet will be posted. We are the only place in the entire city that has a posting requirement, and that was because what I wanted to happen is so that people would be informed as to how they're getting to these numbers. We've had a hiccup at Building and Safety, unfortunately, that I've been trying desperately to fix. What has happened is we recently had a shift in the leadership of Building and Safety, and hopefully I can get the new leadership to pay more attention to this and have this one unique area that's now going to be two unique areas in the entire city that has a posting requirement to have these requirements. No other area in the city are you required to post information such as this outside of the building in the city of LA.
Will you take questions from the board?
Sure.
Okay. All right, start with you.
Why can't, there are some builders that are respectful of the RFA, and there are those that aren't. And why can't you have an audit before they get their C of O, and then there's a lien against their property for what they have done to the community in a negative impact, and then it goes back into the community to mitigate what they've done to improve something in the community that these people are suffering from?
So I'll do better than that.
Can I get my crack walls fixed?
The first aspect of that is, and again, I'm not out there doing these inspections and thing, but prior to the certificate of occupancy, there's a separate inspector that comes out to review every aspect of the building permit to make sure that the building was built to the plans and all the regulations that are accompanied by it. So they should all be in this case. If there is a house that has blatantly violated that, or if someone does think that's the case, we do have every permit in the city of LA, regardless of when it was issued, does have an appeal process where you could appeal the building permits, stating that the building was built not to the permits issued or that the permits were issued in error, and that appeal process through the Building and Safety would not only fine the builder, but it would actually require them to correct the buildings to be in compliance with rules and regulations. I've only seen this happen twice in the city in the last 5 years that I've been involved. One is on Magnolia, where the house was built larger than BMO because they added on after the final permits were signed on. They went in and added an extra room without permits, and then tried to get permits for that. It was long story short, they had to tear down that additional section because it was above BMO standards. And there was a building in Venice that was built 3 feet taller than the allowable height. And I remember because this got appealed all the way to council, and they had to go in and cave off 3 feet of the building.
Well, what happened on Chiquita though was that they made them move the walls inside of the house. That was 600 feet too much. So the house is still the same size on the outside.
The livable square footage, which is what the calculates, is.
So lots of stuff is just silly, even though it's getting repaired. We did have one house in Colfax Meadows that went too high, and they made him come and cut it off at one point, but it was when it was still in a framing job. So,
We're
go ahead.
talking about